Hey guys, Daniel James here, and what I'd like to do today is take a look at the newly released CineBrass library by CineSamples, which is CineSamples' new brass library. That's an interesting way to start a video, but anyway, let's go with it. We'll do it live. Okay, so yeah, like I say, what I want to do is take a look at a track I've written using the library, and then what I'll do is I'll go in and take a look at what each patch is doing, blah de blah, and talk about my feelings about them. So yeah, let's take a listen to the track. Warning, it's an action track, so it starts a bit loud. So here we go. So yeah, that's the track I wrote. That took about an hour. So maybe that's an indication of how easy it is to work with the sample libraries I've got. I personally think that's that I moved pretty quick for how long's the track? 1 minute 30. 1 minute 30 seconds long. It took about an hour. So that's how many tracks have I? I've got quite a few tracks. So I mean that's pretty good. So yeah, let's do this in sections. So if I start with this first action section. So the first thing about this library that struck me when I downloaded it was how awesome and fun it is to play with the Articulations Patches, which is essentially where you get the short notes, the medium notes, and the sustains all in one patch. And the way they've programmed it is it's velocity sensitive, and I'm surprised no one's ever thought of doing it this way before, but having it so that you can change the articulation of a patch by the way you play it, as opposed to, you know, an unnatural like key switch, or, you know, even loading two patches and then having two separate MIDI tracks to do, you know, the short notes and the medium length notes. The way they've done it here is that if you play the note soft, you get the short note. If you play the key medium, you get a marcato, and if you play it hard, you get a longer marcato. If you hold the sustain pedal, you get a sustain. Now you see, it's such an obvious thing now in retrospect, but having it set up like this actually gives you the ability to write rhythmically, which is something I've never done for brass before. Before I got CineBrass, the way I would write for my brass samples, because I've never written for a live ensemble, I'm always writing for samples. So with brass, the way they've been set up before, the way I tend to use them is as sustains. You know, if I had any other library, I would play a brass like this. You know. I would play something like that. I wouldn't play How to Train Your Dragon like I did just then, but you know what I mean. I would play, I'd play it just like a pad. That's how I would treat brass. But then when I booted up CineBrass and started playing around, the fact that I could go just even that in itself, The fact that you could, you know, actually create rhythmic passages that have got, you know, a bit of interest to them. You know, it's it's hard to articulate how I mean this, but the fact that you can sustain you know, the fact that you can hit a marcato after a staccato means that the possibilities for creating ostinatos are, you know, great. So if you were just going to have this this ostinato that was like, just something like that. The fact that it's all there ready to go means that it plays into the creativity, because then instead of thinking, oh, you know, I want it to go da da da, and then having to load two patches, you know what I mean? I would never write like that, you know, because I always tend to write based on, actually the way I write is based on the sound design and the rhythms that I've already written in the percussion. So being able to actually augment that with the brass is awesome for me. So let's just take a listen to the first patch I loaded, which was actually a multi, and it's called the horns, tuba and bass trombone articulations. And this has in fact just become my my favorite brass patch ever, because it actually covers the low end with the tuba and the bass trombone. It's got and it's got the French horn, which covers the mid and highs. So yeah, it's the articulations, which means it's got the short, medium and long. And let's just take a listen to this part by itself. So here we go. And that was all one. Well, actually, it was two patches with one MIDI channel. As you probably noticed, there's probably way too many players here for a live ensemble. But of course, I'm not writing for a live ensemble. I'm writing for samples. I'm not writing for a live players. I'm writing for the samples. And you know, this would technically be like, I don't know, like 20 players or something. But that's not what we're gonna, you know, I don't need to hire that many live players. So if it sounds good in samples, then I'm gonna use it. So as you can see here, if you look down here at the MIDI, it's kind of hard to see, but if you look at these short notes here, these are the staccatos, and then these mid ones are the mid marcatos, and then anything up here is the longer sustains, the longer marcatos. So like I said, you can write these rhythmic passages. So if you just take notice, I say a lot, I apologise. If you listen to this marcato here, and what I'll do, and this one here as well, and what I'll do is we'll listen to this passage, and then what I'll do is I'll take them down to just staccato, which is how it would sound if you tried to do this with another library. So if I take these now and make them staccato, this is the equivalent of what you get with other libraries. As you can see, it's actually quite a noticeable difference, and it's so simple. The fact that you've got it in one patch means that it's ready to go. It instantly makes it playable. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Next up in the brass is trumpets. Now you see, before CineBrass, I'd never actually written for trumpets, neither live players or for samples, and the reason is I personally never liked the sound of sampled trumpets. They just didn't sound good to me. I've never been fortunate enough to write for a live player, so I'm stuck with samples, and I just didn't favour the sound. But I'm actually liking the sound of this, particularly because the trumpet articulations are very, very sharp, which is great for writing rhythmic stuff. I mean, it even goes down to a 30-second note. I'm at 90 beats per minute, but it goes down to a 30-second note. And, you know, I think in real life that's called double tonguing. But it pulls it off flawlessly, in my opinion. So if we just take a listen to this, if you notice the 30-second note here. Yeah, so you get this, sounded like it was coming out the right speaker. Anyway, yeah, you get this, let me just find the patch. Yeah, it was, for some reason it was panned to the left, which is not the way I wanted it, so just listen to it again. Yeah, so those 30-second notes mean that you can get those, I'm not sure if anyone's ever tried this with another library, but if you go at anything less than a 16th, you know, it starts to sound, I don't know, it's smeary. It smears into itself, you know. But now that, you know, I'm not sure how they did it, but when you play a 30-second note, you actually get that sense of double tonguing. And then, again, you accent it with the marcato afterwards. You get a phrase. If I take this marcato down to a staccato, it still sounds good, but it you know, it hasn't got the same kind of phrase. It doesn't feel like a phrase. It just feels like I've layered some staccato notes together, you know. If you whack a marcato on the end, it feels like a phrase, which is cool. And then yeah, so then we move into this section again. There's probably way too many trumpet players here, but I think it sounds good. And they are playing this. Nice and simple, and again very, very rhythmic, which is the kind of things I enjoy. And as you can see, I've only actually used for the main section there, I've only used two MIDI channels for all that rhythmic stuff, which sounds like this. It's hard for me to emphasize how important that is. That's two MIDI channels, so you know, when I'm writing, I don't want a page full of MIDI. As you know, as great as that looks, you know, and how impressive it looks to someone looking at your project, I like to have the least amount of MIDI channels as possible with the maximum amount of control, which is what I'm getting here. Like I say, if you listen to how much is actually going on within two MIDI channels here. And to me, it doesn't sound like you're getting that ensemble effect, which is where you load up an ensemble patch in a sample library, which is where you've got the lows and highs, but they're baked in. You know, like there's crossfades, so you don't get the higher range of the lower instruments, you don't get the lower range of the higher instruments. To me, this doesn't sound like you're getting that. Well, you're not, because these are all individual patches. And the fact that it's that you're getting those staccatos with the marcatos means that you're actually getting a lot more. You know what I mean? If you were to break this down, so tuba, bass, trombone, and French horn, there's three patches right there. And then this is if you were using another library. So if you wanted to achieve this sound, right? If I just play this sound one more time. If you wanted to do that with another sample library, you would need one MIDI channel for the tuba, one MIDI channel for the bass trombone, one MIDI channel. Actually, no, the tuba and bass trombone are together, so that's not fair. So one MIDI channel for the tuba and the bass trombone, one for the French horn, and one for the trumpet. So that's three MIDI channels there. Then you would need one each staccato, so there's 6. And then you would need one each for the medium marcato, you know, there's 9. Then you'd need one each for the longer marcato, and there's 12. So you'd need 12 MIDI channels to achieve something similar, because of the way it's programmed, which is brilliant. So, you know, least amount of MIDI channels, maximum control. And as you can see here, I've got one of the effects from, let me just load up and show you what it is. So down here I've got the Trumpet Effects, which is, I'll just play you what they are. You get 3 different effects. You get this, you get some of this, and you get some of this. And what I did is I picked one of the effects just to show you what it sounds like, and I layered it in with the trumpet, so it sounds like this. Now you probably didn't hear that because there was lots going on. So if I just solo out the trumpets without this, so you won't hear this right now. But now if I put that in, and that actually sounded like it was crazy too loud, but if I put that in context with the brass and now listen to it, it adds that extra drive, you know, that extra kind of lift into the next section. You know, it adds that extra little oomph, which is all important when you're writing music, the oomph. Just for the purpose of showing how it's layering with other instruments, what I've got is I've got LA scoring strings, spiccato cellos and bass, violins and viola. So that the strings in this section is playing, it's actually doubling what the brass is playing, because the gaps in between are being filled by the percussion, which I'll show you in a second. So this is the strings. Like I say, these are doubling the horn section, which sounds like this. And I've actually got this this interesting rhythm that, so if you look down on the cellos here, you get, just solo out the cellos. On the cellos you're actually getting this rhythm, which is doubling the horns. And then I did a different rhythm, you know, so you're getting a bit of a polyrhythm with the violins, which is quite nice. So yeah, and then my big old epic over the top percussion, just the way I like it, which is a bit like this. Bit off topic, but when you're writing rhythms, you could even apply this to the brass, is when you're writing rhythms, don't be afraid to throw in little grace notes. It doesn't have to be boom, ja, boom, boom, ja, boom, ja, boom, boom, ja. You know, throw in little grace notes every now and again. I mean, if you listen to these little random notes, when you put them in context of the actual beat, they make a lot more sense. They just add that extra little bit of interest, you know, and you layer it in with the rest of it. And you get that nice pulse, and when you layer that in with, you know, perhaps the brass section, you know, you get. For the eagle-eared among you there, you would have noticed that, do eagles have ears? Anyway, for those of you who were listening intently then, you would notice that I was actually getting a polyrhythm with the percussion was playing one sort of rhythm, and then the brass, which, you know, I can now finally write as a rhythm part, which is doing this ostinato thing here. You're getting this, you know, you're getting this competing rhythm, which is creating a lot of rhythmic interest. If I just layer the brass with the percussion again, and listen to how you're getting this kind of offbeaty kind of rhythm. you know, I'm not strictly doubling everything. I'm, you know, adding a bit of rhythmic interest, because, you know, you can now finally, I can now write rhythmically with the brass, which is something I'd never done before. So yeah, so that's that section, and then we move into I wanted to show off the legato instruments, so we'll take a listen to those. Of course, that was being layered. That's the this one here's the solo trumpet. That was being layered with a cello from Hollywood Strings, and then Symphobia and LA Scoring Strings. So if we just solo out the solo horn, no, the solo trumpet, it sounds like this. And of course, I've got modulation. A bit lazy on the modulation, but you get the gist. So that's working quite nice. And then I've got solo French horn, which is playing a counter melody, which, unless you've got strings, makes no sense whatsoever. Now if I layer that with the trumpet, you know, you get the counter melody. Now you can't actually, it's hard to grasp what that counter melody is doing, so I'll just load in the Symphobia part so you can hear what that counter melody is actually doing. So yeah, that's the solo legato instruments, and then we move into the what I did is I wrote a little theme, you know, not a particularly good one, but it'll do for the purpose of demonstration. And I state a theme, and then basically I repeat the theme, but I wanted to make it feel big and epic, you know. I wanted to show that big blockbuster kind of theme feel. Not sure how close I got to that, but you know. And then it sounds so. Then the theme now sounds like this. Yeah, maybe I should not solo the instruments. Fail. Anyway, yeah, so it's the same theme, but with the instead of the solo brass patches, it's the ensemble legato articulations. So we've got the French horn ensemble legato and the trumpets legato. Trumpets ensemble legato. Interesting. Sorry, the mod wheel there, not mod wheel, the sustain pedal wasn't registering, but now it is. Yeah, so if we take a listen to this first part, this is actually the this patch here is the horns, bass trombone and French horn patch that I used in the intro, but because I'm holding down the sustain, it now becomes like my brass pad, you know. Just keep in mind, this is the exact same patch that a minute ago was playing this. And now it's playing this, you know. again, this is not legato. Any patch that's got articulations only has sustain long notes. It doesn't have the legato. So what I'll do now is I'll move over to the French horn. This is French horn ensemble. I got a little bit lazy on the modulation at the end there, but yeah. Then I've got the same thing doubled on trumpet, trumpet ensemble legato. You layer them together, you get down here I've got my first instance of the trombone articulations. Now one of the things that it's not a disappointment, but one of the things I hope they look to do in perhaps an expansion or CineBrass 2 is I'd love to see either solo trombone or legato trombone. Because in CineBrass you only get the articulations for trombones, and you see with trombones I like to play chords, like something like this. But I'd normally do it with the solo so that it's not too big of a sound, the solo trombone. I mean, you can get away with doing it like this, but it's got a bigger sound, so it doesn't lend itself to being in the quiet parts, which is why I didn't use it here. I'm only using it in the epic part. This is actually an articulations patch, so it's got all the it's got all the short parts, but I'm using it as a legato instrument. Not legato, sorry, I'm using it as a sustain for a counter melody on the brass. I'll load up the horn so you can hear what it's actually doing. So, all the patches are, melting nicely together, which is brilliant because that means less work for me, which is what I want, but still with the great end result. Just a note, for those of you who have seen my my previous videos, I did an LA scoring strings versus Hollywood strings video. I do actually like Hollywood strings. I do actually like LA scoring strings. Yeah, and I've used them together just to prove this fact, and I think they sound great. So this is my string part for this section. Right, let me actually put in the Hollywood strings. And of course the cello part here, which is in Hollywood strings, is doubling the main theme, which is on the trumpet and horn. And then I've got I've got the first violins from LA scoring strings, which sounds like this. Again, doubling the horn line. So yeah, that is pretty much the track that I wrote. So let me just go into the patches and show what we've got loaded. So so the main part of it, the rhythmic part, which is at the start, sounds like. So you can see these three patches here, and these are the articulation patches, which are my favorites personally because it allows me to write rhythmically. And then I've got the horns, ensemble, true legato, anything with ensemble, you know, sounds bigger because it's more players. And then I've got the solo things for that this breakdown section here where it's all nice and soft. You know, so it can do soft, it can do epic, and of course it can do that great rhythmic stuff, which is what I was looking for. There are a few things that that I'd like to see them include in the future. You know, perhaps maybe more effects. You get 3 trumpet effects, and then maybe some more articulations for the trombone. So you know, I'd like to see a solo trombone and a legato trombone. You know, if the solo one's legato as well, that's a bonus. And that's another thing I'd like to see. If they ever, you know, if they're listening, I'd like to see an articulations patch, but for the solo instruments. So you know, I'd like to have the horn solo. Horn solo, it sounds like, anyway. A horn solo articulation, so that you can have, you know, the solo brass, but with the articulation. So you know, those short notes, like that kind of thing, you know. So yeah, so things I'd like more trombones, I'd like effects, and I would love to see solo articulations. But you know, the price of this library is so low, it is, you know what I mean, if not an impulse buy, it's a no-brainer in my opinion. I mean, even just for me personally, the ability to write rhythmically, I mean, for me that's a really big deal, because I love to write rhythms. Being able to write rhythmically is worth the price itself. The legato is awesome. I'll just, you know, play some lines, of course. You know, the legato sounds brilliant. I mean, what more can I say? It may sound like I'm gushing, but that's because I've just got it. You know, I've just got the library, so I'm very excited about it. But my initial impression is extremely good. I mean, the load times are short. If you've watched my previous videos, I'm not a big fan of load times. You know, and like I keep saying, that it may sound so, you know, it may sound so such a minuscule thing, but being able to add those marcatos directly after staccatos to create ostinato, that's a lot of artos, being able to do that, you know, is a big deal as well, you know. So in the past, if I wanted to like say do Superman, it would sound like that with staccato, but now you can, you know, the ability to be able to do that on the fly, you know, to actually write like that. You need to get used to where those sensitivities are, though. Yeah, so you can write nice and rhythmic, and you know, you can have a bit of fun with it. So yeah, I've rambled on for way too long. I hope I've given you a good overview of what CineBrass is all about. I'm personally loving it. There's a few things I'd like to see them add in the future, but like I say, the price is so low, this is a no-brainer for me. So I hope you guys have found this video useful. If not useful, I hope you found it enjoyable. If you didn't find it enjoyable either, I apologise for wasting however long of your time. But yeah, I'm loving it. Not McDonald's. I'm loving CineBrass. Yeah, and I'll be using it. Like I say, this brass multi has become my favourite brass patch of all time, because it covers the low, mid and high all in one patch, you know. it's got the entire range, and it's got it all as short, long, and sustained. So, I mean, like I say, you could do like a sustained bass. You could do anything. But yeah, so again, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you found it useful, and I shall see you all in my next video. Thanks again.